Hello, so my moons are unfortunately gone for this video. I just moved to a new place. It might sound a little bit echoey, sorry, but the moons will be back eventually, just not for this video. But I wanted to make something for the Apollo 50th anniversary, which I should have made for my last video, but because I was moving I wanted to do something that was a bit shorter. But anyway, here we go. 50 facts for 50 years since the Apollo 11 moon landing. Two faces. Due to a massive impact, probably due to an asteroid similar in size to Ceres, the side of the moon facing Earth is much thinner than the far side. During most of the moon landings, including Apollo 11, seismometers were left on the moon. They recorded 62 moonquakes between 1972 and 1977 alone. Since the rocks on the moon aren't as soft as the ones on Earth, these quakes can be felt for minutes on end. About 25% of the moonquakes are caused by energy and debris spewing out from faults in the moon, which means that the moon is slowly contracting inwards. The moon is getting further and further away from the Earth, at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year. In 50 billion years from now, the moon will take 47 days to orbit the Earth instead of the current 27.3 days. The moon is the fifth largest moon in our solar system. The largest is Ganymede, followed by Titan, Callisto, and Io. The moon is also larger than Pluto. On a related note, the moon is the second densest moon in the solar system. Only Io is denser. Similar to the Earth, the moon is made of different layers. The crust, upper and middle and lower mantle, and the fluid outer core and solid inner core. One of the rocks from Apollo 14 has been found to be over 4 billion years old and contains a fragment of the primeval Earth's crust. This makes it one of the oldest rocks ever found, with the only other possible contender for the title being from Jack's Hills in Australia. The moon's atmosphere. Yes, the moon does in fact have an atmosphere, however it's very thin. Earth has about 10 to the 19 molecules per cubic centimetre at sea level, but the moon only has 10 to the 6 molecules. The moon's atmosphere is mostly made up of argon, helium and neon. Moon seas, also called lunar maria. The dark patches on the moon are known as seas because that's what early astronomers thought they were, but they're actually just basalt spewed from volcanoes. Although the seas of the moon aren't actually made of water, there is water on the moon. The water is frozen on the moon's surface until the middle of the moon's day, when it's heated enough to become steam and float in the moon's atmosphere. The moon's temperature ranges from negative 153 degrees Celsius to 127 degrees Celsius. 4.5 billion years ago, a planet about the size of Mars called Theia crashed into Earth. The impact knocked debris from the Earth, which got caught in the Earth's orbit and eventually formed into the moon. Have you ever seen the moon near the horizon and thought it looked huge? Well, you're not alone. Records of this illusion date all the way back to Aristotle. This is probably caused either by apparent distance, where the moon looks further away near the horizon, and thus bigger because it remains the same size while looking further away, or relative size, which is a popular technique in optical illusions. The moon's land speed record is a staggering 11.5 miles an hour, achieved by a buggy driven during Apollo 17. There's only one photo of Neil Armstrong on the moon. Since he took most of the photos, almost all the photos of astronauts from the Apollo 11 mission show Buzz Aldrin. Ever wondered what the term once in a blue moon means? Well, most years have 12 full moons, one for each month, but about every third year there'll be an extra full moon. Originally, a blue moon was the third full moon in whichever season had 4 full moons. However, the second full moon in a month has become the more popular definition. It's unknown exactly where the term blue moon came from, but it might have come from the Old English word, however you say this, meaning betray, as in betraying common conception. Blue moon isn't the only special name for a full moon. There's also January's wolf moon, February's snow moon, although every 19 years February has no full moon, which is called a black moon. March's worm moon, April's pink moon, May's flower moon, June's strawberry moon, July's black moon, August's sturgeon moon, the harvest moon, which is whichever full moon is closest to the autumn equinox, September's corn moon, October's hunter moon, November's beaver moon, and December's cold moon. When Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong returned to their cabin, they found that the moon's dust had clung to their suits. Because of this, they found that the dust had a strong smell, similar to the smell of that fireworks leave behind. When Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong returned to their cabin, they found that the moon's dust had clung to their suits. Because of this, they were able to find out that the dust had a strong smell, similar to that of recently burnt fireworks. At 4,700 meters tall, Mons Huygens is the moon's tallest mountain, but it's just over half as tall as Mount Everest. I'm sure you're aware that the gravitational pull of the moon creates tides. What you probably don't know is that since the moon orbits the Earth in an ellipse, the amount it affects the tide by varies, with the tide being larger and more unpredictable when the moon is close and vice versa. Similar to how the ocean bulges due to the moon's gravity, the moon also bulges due to the Earth's gravity, making it somewhat egg-shaped. Nixon had a special speech prepared in case the moon landing went wrong, titled, "In the Event of Moon Disaster." The speech was to be read if an issue occurred during the mission and the men could not return. According to Buzz Aldrin, when he and Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, they only had about 15 seconds of fuel remaining. While Buzz and Neil were still on the moon, the Soviet probe Lunar 15 crashed into the moon. Fortunately, the probe crash was nowhere near the Apollo mission. On September 14, 1968, the USSR launched Zond 5. Aboard were 2 tortoises with insects, plants, and some bacteria. The craft orbited around the moon and took pictures too. The tortoises survived with only minor health issues. On top of first sending animals around the moon, the Soviets also landed the first unmanned craft on the moon, with their Lunar 2 in September of 1959. Its predecessor Lunar 1 missed the moon by quite a wide margin. The moon always faces the Earth the same way, so from Earth we can only see about 60% of the moon. This effect is called synchronous rotation and occurs in all large moons in our solar system. The moon and the sun are the same angular size. The moon and the sun are the exact right distances from Earth that they look like they're the same size from the Earth's surface, with the moon being 1/400th the size of the sun, but 400 times closer. The Earth is obviously much larger than the moon. Because of this, the Earth has a longer shadow, so lunar eclipses last longer than solar ones. Despite the name, the far side of the moon receives just as much light as the near side. It has the opposite ratio of light and shadow to the near side, so a new moon on the near side is a full moon on the far side. Despite appearing very bright in our night sky, the surface of the moon only reflects slightly more light than asphalt. In 1958, a year before Lunar 2 landed on the moon, the United States felt like they were lagging behind in the space race. One solution they came up with was to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Yes, seriously. They figured that the blast, which would be visible from the Earth, would demonstrate their strength. The plan was cancelled for fear of public outcry and the possibility of something going wrong. And if that wasn't crazy enough, the Soviets also had a plan to do the same thing. When Alan Shepard visited the moon on the Apollo 14 mission, he hit a golf ball 730 meters. The moon is covered in crushed rocks and sand called regolith. since so many meteorites hit it and, unlike Earth, the moon doesn't have enough atmosphere to burn them up. Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt, after returning to his module from exploring the Sea of Serenity, had an allergic reaction to dust that came in with him. His symptoms, including sneezing and red eyes, lasted 2 hours. The footprints of all astronauts are still perfectly preserved on the moon. Since the moon has no wind and very little water, there's almost nothing to corrode the footprints, and they could last for millions of years. The light from the moon can create rainbows. They're much fainter than their daytime counterparts, however, so they're hard to see unless the moon is full and lower than 42 degrees in the sky. In 1963, Major League pitcher Gaylord Perry joked that they'll put a man on the moon before he hits a home run. He finally hit his first home run in 1969, just 1 hour after the Apollo 11 moon landing. In 1999, the ashes of astrogeologist Eugene Shoemaker were taken to the moon by the Lunar Prospector space probe. Today, he is the only person whose remains are in any celestial body other than Earth. However, two companies, Celestis and Elysium Space, both offer programs to launch your ashes into the moon's orbit. During the Apollo 11 mission, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong left medals commemorating Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, and his friend Vladimir Komarov, a cosmonaut who died when his craft crashed. Inside a great mound in Meath, Ireland, archaeologists have found the world's oldest moon maps. At about 5,000 years old, the carvings show the lunar Maria depicted as a series of lines. In 2014, MIT did a test where they used lasers to transmit data to and from the moon, and they found they could get an upload speed of 19.44 megabits per second and a download speed of 622 megabits a second. Although it took over 4 days for Apollo 11 to reach the moon, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong only spent 3 hours on the moon. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong requested permission to skip their scheduled nap so they could have more time on their moonwalk. Luckily, they were allowed to on the condition that they slept as soon as they finished their mission. Since there was concern that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong might have contracted some kind of disease on the moon, the astronauts were quarantined for 21 days from the time they left the moon. China's Chang'e 4 mission took seeds of several plants, including cotton and potato, to the moon earlier this year, along with yeast and fruit fly eggs. The seeds successfully sprouted inside the self-contained chambers, creating their own little ecosystems. Unlike the footsteps on the moon, the flags have not fared so well. The thin atmosphere of the moon offers no protection against the sun, and they have been bleached white. In 1835, the New York newspaper The Sun published 6 articles claiming intelligent life had been found on the moon. Richard Locke is believed to have written the articles about man-bats living on the moon to increase sales and lampoon outlandish astronomical theories of the time. NASA had a habit of reusing their old tapes, so yes, someone at some point taped over the original moon landing footage. The video we have today is from a recording of a monitor playing the original. You might have seen this image floating around earlier this year. Located below the South Pole Aitken Basin, the moon's largest and deepest crater, there is a huge chunk of metal buried beneath the moon's surface. The anomaly is estimated to weigh around 2.2 quintillion kilograms. And that's it, all 50 facts done and wrapped up. Thank you so much for watching the video. I've tried to include as many links and sources for these as possible because it took me a long time to find them. And as usual, I will be seeing you next week.